Why, hi everybody, and welcome to Premier Injuries. That sounds so wrong, doesn't it? It's that actually physically hurt you there, didn't it, Ben? But in terms of it, welcome back to the Premier Injuries channel. You are back here with the weekly Q&A. This is your show, and we want to help the community out with all your questions. Just before we start, remember to like, share and subscribe for my brilliant Geordie accents and using some, wonderful words like canny lass or scran or just weird Newcastle lingo. Or, no, I shouldn't say weird, some brilliant Newcastle lingo. But as always, I'm here with the big man himself, Ben. I mean, I usually ask, are you excited for the game week? Maybe I should ask, how offended were you with my use of "why, everyone"?
It's not the greatest homage to the Geordie accent I've ever heard. I don't want to be too harsh because you always put 100% effort into these things. I'm going with a 4.5 out of 10.
Well, fair enough. I will accept that. A 4.5 out of 10. I'll go and practice. Maybe next week I'll be a little bit better. But as always, as I said there, this is the Q&A session for the community. And the first question that we have been asked, and a lot of people have actually sent this on your Twitter as well, Ben. As always, we say to people, you can tweet, you can message on this Reddit thread, you can just get involved with it, whatever social media means that you have possible. JR44 has asked, when is Rafinha likely to return?
Yeah, so we've heard from Marcelo Bielsa today, Thursday, ahead of this weekend's game. Again, very coy in terms of physical updates on players' progress. Rafinha, along with Calvin Phillips, it was textbook answer, straight bat, assessed on a daily basis, and we'll see how they evolve with a game day decision. Game day decision means that they're not going to make any decision until Saturday. The hope is that those players would train on Friday. If they come through that session and there's no reaction overnight, then that would put them in contention. What we do know is ahead of game week 34 in the Brighton match, Marcelo Bielsa's understanding was that Rafinha was entering the final phase of his recovery. Now, if all of that went to plan and he's came through that no problem, then hopefully he should have been training and working this week outside on the pitches again, which means he shouldn't be too far away. So, it's a 50-50 call at this moment. But if he does miss out game week 35, then I would suggest maybe return in game week 36.
It's a difficult situation because, as you explained on our defensive and attacking podcast, which I recommend people do check out, Bielsa's a little bit peed off with the Premier League community, and so he once was very open and now he's almost completely mysterious Marcello because he just doesn't want to let people know. But let's move it on to Torzano, who does want to know, what's the biggest point hit you should take for this game week? Ben, what are your insights on point hits?
I'm an FPL manager that tends not to take any. Haven't had any this season. Don't think I had any last season. In the grand scheme of things, it never seemed to work out for me. The only time I would ever advocate really is if you're going into a game week and you haven't got 11 starters, and you weigh up the risk reward scenario in that front. What I would say about this particular game week, let's not get drawn too much on Man United being a triple game week, because they have a Europa League tie to contend with first, and then 3 Premier League games in quick succession. Now, depending on how results go elsewhere, Manchester United will want to lock in that second place in the Premier League. Now, that could happen after Friday night. Let's say Newcastle get a result and Manchester United win on Sunday, or it could happen on the Tuesday when Manchester United face Leicester. That will impact on team selection ahead of, forget the fact that it's Liverpool and they're the big rivals. Ollie won't be concerned about that. He will then be focusing on, that Europa League final and managing his squad through this difficult period. Last thing you want is soft tissue, muscle injuries, to rule them out, because given the close proximity of when these games will be played, even a minor strain could potentially put their availability for the final at risk. So and, and that's not just for United as well. There are other teams and other influencing factors that also come into play. We spoke, Ralph Hasenhüttl spoke today, Thursday, as well. He spoke about that he will be looking to rotate his goalkeepers, Fraser Forster and Alex McCarthy, over those remaining games. He'll not tell you who, but that's what, to be careful. He's also going to look to blood some youngsters, during these final few matches. So teams who are safe and in theory don't really have a lot to play for, it gives managers an opportunity to maybe experiment, rotate, try different systems. Like I say, maybe blood in a few development players with one eye on the long term. Then you also have maybe the likes of Arsenal, who are also playing in Europa, and really they haven't got much to play for in the league. So as we seen last weekend, game week to game week, I think Mikel Arteta made 9 changes for the trip to St James's Park. So you're trying to pick players over 2 game weeks, and presumably that's why you're asking the question. So for me, I wouldn't take the hit necessarily. Hope that you've got enough double game week players to make it worth your while, and keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully they'll return. But I wouldn't be looking at any defenders or goalkeepers first and foremost. I never do. And if you were insistent on taking a hit, then it would have to be those offensive returns that I'd be looking at. Those players who will hope to return maybe an assist or a goal. And the fixtures, there's double game weeks, but the fixtures aren't great when you scratch beneath the surface. There's not a lot to get the juices flowing.
And with the situation there, like you said, with the Manchester United one, you don't know if all the players are going to play those 3 games. With the other teams, you're not sure who will be starting. But also the reality is that in game week 36, 4 teams do blank as well. So you have to be wary of that fact. So Arsenal, Chelsea, Leicester and Manchester United are going to be without a game in that game week. So again, you might take a hit to bring in 2 or 3 Manchester United players, but then the next game week, you're not going to have a starting 11, and that could be a huge problem to your squad. So I would say at the moment, I'm kind of reticent to recommend too many hits, maybe 1 at max. It depends how many kind of transfers you've got. But the problem is that obviously next game week, 36, there are some games missing, and also players might be rested. It is a double game week, but because the games are so tight together, because we're so close to the end of the season, and because of COVID and fatigue and everything else, players just might be rested. As you've described there, we see a trend of young players being played, so it's a little bit of a dangerous task there. That's why I've kind of gone with maybe somebody like Wilfried Zaha, who, if he is declared fit, so I'm keeping an eye on that situation, but he'll start, or Cresswell, or Antonio, or Lingard. It's not as appealing. They've only got, so Zaha's got a double, Cresswell's only got a single, but at least you know that they'll be playing this game week. The next question is from JZone11, and they're asking sell Holding or Diaz, and who to replace them with.
Both huge rotation risks. Once City secure that title, you're looking at Nathan Ake, you're looking at Laporte, John Stones, and Diaz. So 4 doesn't go into 2. You can even shuffle Kyle Walker across into there as well. Diaz has probably been the mainstay of that City defence for most of the season. So you'd like to think that he's probably, in terms of minutes and starts, he's the one that's most likely going to play if Pep sort of continues how he has done throughout the campaign. At Arsenal, the injury to David Luiz could influence Rob Holding. But again, Arsenal have got their fair share of centre-backs in there as well. Pablo Mari, Callum Chambers. So it's difficult for me. I just don't trust Arsenal. Would be the bottom line. And so even if Rob Holding is getting a start, am I confident that Arsenal will go out there and get a result and get a clean sheet? Not really. Not particularly when Mikel Arteta's making a lot of changes. On the flip side, you could say that if they do reach the Europa League final, you're going to have a squad of, 18, 19 players who all want to be in that starting 11 for that cup final, and therefore they will go out on the pitch and they'll be doing their utmost to try and convince Mikel Arteta that they deserve that start. But yeah, I'm not particularly a big fan of Rob Holding, if I'm entirely honest. I just think there's threats within that squad. I didn't even mention Gabriel. We'll see what happens with David Luiz, but even if he does, Arsenal haven't been great. And let's not get carried away. They got a decent result at Newcastle, but Newcastle were diabolical, if the truth be told.
So my kind of opinion on this is Diaz is quite premium, but now he's kind of coming to the point where he might be risked. It kind of goes back to the conversation that you had just there about Manchester United with the focus on the Europa League final. Well, Pep will, now that the league title's basically done and dusted, I think Diaz will be under more threat. He's been a constant in that Manchester City side through this season. You kind of hang your hat on him starting and probably Ederson. So with him, I think that it's getting a little bit risky, and it depends how much money you've got in the bank. So of the more premium defenders, you might want to turn your attention to the aforementioned Diaz. It depends if you've got one of the Liverpool kind of fullbacks, so Robertson or Trent Alexander-Arnold are good. It really depends like how much money you've got in your squad. But the basic kind of thing that you and I have said from game week 30-ish, really, Ben, because of our investigations onto the high goal scoring nature of the final games this season, is you want basically now a defender who starts every week and is also got the ability for goal scoring. So that's why Cresswell kind of fits. TAA, maybe Luke Shaw, but again, there's that worry of game week 36 blanking. So there are some options out there, even Timothy Castagne, but again, another one that blanks. You have to manage your squad rightly. And if you're going with transferring out Rob Holding, who is the one that I like least out of those two, even though Diaz is equally kind of under threat, Rob Holding's 4.3, so you don't get many options there. Again, it depends with, if you've got a little bit of money in the bank, you might be able to go for somebody like Ayling or one of the Struijk from Leeds. They're probably the best because they've got one of the best runs towards the end of the season. And we know that Leeds defenders can get involved with goals and things like that. They kind of a light version of meeting that. And if you got a little bit more, maybe Dallas at 5.2, 5.3. Obviously 1 mil more or one whatever the monetary thing is in FPL, but it's a difficult decision. I'm not warm on either of those, but I would stick with Diaz if I was going to stick with any of those two, and I would get out Rob Holding. So let's move it on to the next question. Hell of an Elevator, and their question is best United assets for the triple game week. Now, we did cover this with our attacking assets. We went through, I asked you the question, who were your three that you would go if you had, didn't have your Rashford set and forget situation and all that, just basically a blank squad for this game week. And you went with 3 attackers, whereas I went with 2 attackers and 1 defender. So, yeah, do you want to just quickly explain, your thoughts and feelings behind the 3 that you chose, and I'll go with mine, and then we can move it on to the next question.
Yeah, I mean, I went for 3 attackers because we covered it on the attacking podcast. I would have if we had looked at it just generally, I probably would have stuck Maguire in there because he's. If I'm looking for minutes and players who are playing, is Ollie going to drop Maguire? Probably the least lightly out of those centre backs. He's got Lindelof in there. Now he's managing an ongoing back problem, so he may struggle to play games in quick succession, and certainly will struggle probably to play the three. So you've got Eric Bailey coming in there. So I think Maguire looks nailed. Wan-Bissaka, on the right-hand side, would be the defender that I would prefer maybe to go just edge over Shaw, because Alex Talas could come in for Shaw. But I would go Maguire, Rashford, because even though I know he's currently has this ongoing foot stroke toe problem, in these minutes are being managed. It's an impact injury. It's something that he can play on. It's not necessarily getting any worse. So, he comes on and he maybe starts and he plays 60, 70 minutes. I'd be happy with that in every game. I'd also factor in that, Anthony Martial is ruled out currently. We've also seen Daniel James ruled out, and I have question marks whether Edison Cavani could start the 3 games as well. So I think in terms of attacking assets, it would be Rashford because he starts, and I think you would be hard pushed to overlook Bruno. But in yesterday's pod, I did obviously throw in Paul Pogba as well, and that was, based on the premise that he's been pushed up into that role on the left-hand side, on the left wing. He was dropped or benched against Leeds, where United drew 0 each. So he has had those minutes out of the team. Hopefully United will get the job done against Roma nice and early. Ollie might have the opportunity to rest players then, and that'll give you a good indication of how he might line up against Aston Villa this weekend.
So my selection was a little bit different from yours. It's quite interesting to me that you didn't go with the fullbacks, you went with Maguire, but I like your reasoning of somebody that is definitely going to play. Mine are probably more maverick choices, and that probably kind of describes, the situation, the season that I'm having. I'm happy to make those risky choices just because, my season in FPL is kind of done and dusted. I just want a bit of fun, and I want those goal scoring players that will have high potential, high ceilings. So I went with Luke Shaw. Over the last 4 game weeks, ridiculous amount of chances created, 13 over the last 4, which is 21 minutes per chance created, 0.73 expected assists. So I think he's not got an assist during that time. I think he's due one because of the kind of underlying data there. But then kind of continuing that, I've gone with the more maverick choice of Mason Greenwood, and looking at kind of Rashford versus his stats. Greenwood is much more involved with like touches in the box, shots in the box. He's had higher XG and XGI. And so looking at it, I think he's kind of bubbling under the surface. And when he has played, he's played really well. And then I think Bruno Fernandes, he picks himself. There's a no-brainer there. So no discussion needed on that one. Darth Bane 6996 has asked, any Manchester United assets that you think will possibly play all 3 games, though? I think that is a really important question, kind of building on your thinking around Harry Maguire.
Again, I think we need a little bit of context here. If results go their way and Manchester United secure second place, either after the Aston Villa game or the Leicester, then I can see Ollie heavily rotating his side against Liverpool. At this point, if I was to ask who I think would start, I think I'd probably go Henderson, Maguire, Wan-Bissaka, Rashford, and Bruno. Those would be the players that I'm sort of leaning towards and getting 3 starts.
That worries me a little bit because I've got Luke Shaw and Mason Greenwood. But as explained there, I've gone with a bit more maverick approach, which is interesting because, you're the differential dinnery, but you're playing it more safe towards the end of this season. Nissa Paul has asked Salah or Bruno for captain. Now, I think they're obviously in mind that Salah's got a great fixture against Southampton, who have been more porous recently, a lot of XG conceded, but Bruno does have 3 games. And as you said there, Ben, you think that he will probably play in all 3. I think that is kind of an easy answer on that one. Or do you have any kind of disagreements over that one, Ben?
No, absolutely none. It seems like a no-brainer. I mean, I looked at Salah for fan team this week because I do think it's a great fixture. I think Southampton are treading water. Liverpool really need to start pulling out performances and getting some results if they do harbour any kind of realistic hope of making the Champions League qualification spots. So it's all or nothing. In fan team, I couldn't justify the outlay on Salah. He's a premium asset. There's a lot of money tied up in him, and you're buying, just on form, on Liverpool's form generally, in his returns. You're just not getting big enough returns for Salah for what you're paying at this moment in time. So and then you factor in it's a treble game week, and I expect Bruno could do nothing and in effect walk away with 9 points if United keep 3 clean sheets, and Salah's going to need bonus and a goal to top that.
Bleda Attila has asked when to use the triple captain and on which player. So kind of related to that. I mean, this game week just seems a really good opportunity. Triple captain Bruno. I think, am I right? Am I thinking that you still do have the triple captain chip, Ben?
I've still got bench boost and I've still got triple captain. So my first thoughts when I seen the news announced on Wednesday evening was triple captain, Rashford, let's get it done. But then am I leaning towards a bench boost now? I could make a couple of transfers and really make that sort of pay. So I'm in a little bit of a quandary. But this is the ideal game week to deploy any chips that you've got, because there aren't going to be many other opportunities between now and the end of the season before you're going to get, you want to maximize returns, you want to get the biggest bang for your buck. Tell me when you're going to get another triple game week.
Maybe never in our lifetimes. Who knows? But in terms of it as well, just to remind people that you have to triple captain Rashford. So as I said there, most people will be doing it on Bruno Fernandes. You've got the delight of the differential of Rashford because of your altruism at the start of the season, giving your support to Rashford's great cause. And so you said that he is your captain for the season. Set and forget, because of what you believe he is doing is great. So I hope that helps Bleda Attila. Now, not Kieran Flood has asked you, Ben, I'm using my bench boost in game week 35. I have Rudiger, Fofana, Holding and Leno, all huge risks. What are the likelihood that they play one or both of the game weeks? Thanks in advance.
We've seen Matt Ryan come in for Leno, so Mikel Arteta has been happy to flip-flop, and Ryan hasn't let Arsenal down when he started, so I would expect that to continue. So there's a risk, first and foremost. Fofana, I think he will start, and again, it's just about minutes. We know that he's fasting. We know that it's Ramadan, so we've seen Fofana play as much as I think maybe 60 or 70 minutes, but I think last time out he was replaced at half time, which was disappointing because if Leicester, they've got a good chance of getting a clean sheet against Newcastle if last week's performance was anything to go by. So again, there's question marks with regards to Fofana, although I do think he will start. You'll have to enlighten me on those other two. The memory isn't what it used to be, Jason.
So it was Rudiger, Fofana, Holding and Leno.
Rudiger, difficult. Tuchel is a new Pep, heavily rotated. Again, we're talking about a team that's reached the Champions League final, and Tuchel, I think there's only Kovacic who's actually missing from the matchday squad currently. So Tuchel has lots of options in that back line. So certainly, so there's question marks over Rudiger, particularly as well after he picked up that knock to the face during the first leg in the Bernabeu So, if he wants to take him out the firing line, then he can do so really with ease, without really affecting that starting lineup and the strength too much.
Yeah, it's a difficult situation. I think, not Kieran Flood. I don't envy your position because that is a really difficult one. And maybe you might have to do one or two transfers there, depending on how many. And kind of going back to our point of not too many that you have a hit or maybe just a little hit. But it's a difficult one because there's a lot of players there that could be taken off or could not even play at all. Anto Sheeran gives you the final question of this game week, Ben. And it is a difficult one because, I'm a big fan of him. Jack Grealish, is he done for the season?
Let's hope not. Initial scan results from last week came back fairly positive. But again, that's not any kind of definitive diagnosis. It's an injury that needs to be managed. It's an injury that can change from day to day, as we've seen, I think, prior to maybe game week 32. Jack Grealish had trained up until the point of Friday, felt a little bit of discomfort on a Saturday, and he hasn't been back sort of since. Providing everything is going well, he could be integrated into the squad this weekend, although I certainly wouldn't expect him to start. Aston Villa have been, look, I do think we will see Jack Grealish again this season, but there's no need to sort of rush him and throw him back in too soon, because it's an overuse injury. And, if you force it, potentially you could be then ruling Jack out of the Euros if he makes it into Gareth Southgate's squad.
So that is all the questions answered for the community there. Just to remind everybody, you can get your questions in on Ben's Twitter because he always puts us out on a tweet, and just make sure to follow him so that you can get them in and get everything answered. Any worries that you have with players, injuries, team news. You can also tweet me as well at Jason_R McKenna. You can see that on screen there. But as always, do subscribe to the channel as well so that you're kept up to date when all these things are coming out and the other great content that we have as well. But I'm going to pass it over to Ben just to sign us out and wish you the best of luck this game week.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And thanks, guys, for some really interesting and great questions there. Good luck ahead of this triple game week 35. I hope it's a good one for us all. We'll sprinkle in a few green arrows. So good luck, and until the next time, ciao for now.